Bless you, my dear. I never thought of getting away again till tomorrow morning, and I stayed with her to prevent her from following you. How very glad I am that we got away safe and sound from that terrible woman. How could you have the courage and cleverness to think of it, Mary? Sure enough, dear, it is you that take care of me, and that's a shame, isn't it? It is but fair, nurse, that we should divide the labours of the road between us. It is you who always take care that we are not starved, and it is not too much in return that I should be watchful for your preservation from all the wild cats and tigresses we may chance to encounter. The postboy earned his golden gratuity, greatly to the contentment of its donor, by drawing up at a small but perfectly neat little mansion, where milk pans set on end to dry before the door offered a delightful contrast to all that had been visible at the sign of the Three Crowns. The clean coiffed landlady looked a little surprised at being asked for sleeping rooms by ladies entitled to so splendid a mode of travelling. But the demand being satisfactorily answered, they were quickly installed in a parlour smelling of geraniums instead of gin, and giving orders for their evening meal to the bustling good woman of the house with an air of old acquaintanceship that looked as if they had been her guest for a month. "Nothing was ever so fortunate as this, Nurse Tremlett," said Mary, as soon as they were left alone. "Our stage playing, as you are pleased to call it, must begin here. There is no danger that this kind, simple-hearted creature should misdoubt a word we say, and if you will only perform your allotted part with your usual quiet good sense, I have no doubt that we shall reach her heart sufficiently to make her very useful. I do not ask you to say anything, only to look sufficiently interested to support the character I assign you." "Oh, dear Miss Mary!" exclaimed Miss Tremlett, colouring. "It is to begin already?" The countenance of Miss Brotherton fell from an expression of great animation into that of deep despondency and disappointment. She found that all her difficulties with the old woman were about to be renewed. "Oh, why, Miss Tremlett, if you are unequal to this, did you not honestly tell me so when I explained my purpose to you before we set out?" she said, with no more severity than she had ever used in with more of severity than she had ever used in addressing her during her whole life before. "I could then have taken measures to carry on this business without you. You know how deeply my heart is in it. I did not expect this weakness. I thought it was over." "You are wrong, Miss Mary. You are mistaken altogether," replied Miss Tremlett eagerly. "I am neither weak nor silly, and so you shall see if you won't be so very rash and hasty with me." By no means displeased at the energy with which the good woman defended herself, Mary replied, "Let me see this, Tremlett, and my love and value for you will increase 100-fold. Begin, then, as soon as you like, my dear. I am quite ready." And in saying this, the good old woman assumed an aspect as full of confidence and courage as her own. In a few minutes their repast, which good dairy made luxurious, was before them, the landlady remaining in attendance to replenish the teapot, and so forth. Miss Brotherton's manners, though by no means remarkable to those in her own station for that perfect polish which guards everything without and everything within from disagreeable impressions, were always conciliatory and kind to all below her, and seldom was she waited upon by anyone who could not gladly retained that office near her. So it was with Miss Prescott of the King's Head. The good woman lingered in the room, evidently because she liked being there, and taking advantage of this, Mary addressed her, venturing to give her the name she had read upon the sign. "We are in Derbyshire, are we not, Miss Prescott?" "Yes, miss, this is Derbyshire, sure enough." "What distance is it from hence to Deep Valley?" "What? The factory, miss, that is called Deep Valley Mill?" "Yes. How far is it to that factory?" "Why, it is not over easy to say rightly, seeing that there is no direct road to it. It is a lonesome out of the way place as ever human being thought of taking to, and I can't say as much as knowed about it as by any of of the neighbours around. There's a cart road, I believe, as goes right down to the mill, but the nearest way would be over them hills there, of course, because the factory is built down amongst the very middlemost of 'em," replied Mrs. Prescott. "Would the walk over the hills be too far for my aunt and me?" inquired Mary. "Oh, dear, yes, miss, I should think so. Besides, 'tis no place whatsoever for ladies to go to. The poor little creatures as bides there bearn't no sight for them to look at, and besides, nobody of any sort is ever let to look at 'em." "We must get there, somehow or the other, Mrs. Prescott," said Mary, "and I trust in God that we may not be refused admittance, for our business is no common one." "You've got business at Deep Valley Mill?" demanded Miss Prescott abruptly. "Indeed we have," replied Mary, "and by some means or other we must get in, and what is more, we must see every apprentice they have." The woman shook her head. "I have no more than one lodging here for the night," she said, who, for some reason or other, was curious to get inside of Deep Valley Mill. "But I never knowed of one of them that ever did more than get a look down upon it from top of one yonder of those mountains. And it is no easy matter, they say, to get to the right place even for that, for, by what folks say, them as built the mills seem to think that they could puzzle the wicked one himself out to find 'em out. But there's one eye that sees 'em, if no other do." These last words were added in a mutter that might or might not be noticed, according to the pleasure of the parties within hearing. Mary did not notice them. "Could you have the kindness to tell us to whom we should apply for the permission to go through the factory?" she said. "Indeed, Mass, I am happy to say I knows nothing about 'em, and if all's true as I've heard said over a ale pot by the kitchen fire, the more people ask for leave, the less likely they are to get it. But may I make so bold, miss, as to ask the reason why such ladies as you wants to get there? It would only break your hearts, and what's more, they've been having a horrid fever there, and that's I know for certain, though they sent the poor little creatures off by night to be buried, some to one churchyard, and some to another, to stop people's tongues. It bain't no place, ladies, for you to go." "Well, I tell you why we wish to enter there, you will not say so. Well, when I tell you why we wish to enter there, you will not say so," replied Mary. "The mill is worked by apprentice children, is it not?" "Yes, miss, the more's the pity, for that's what makes the poor wretches slaves for life, for not many of 'em, by all accounts, lives till their time is up." "Hear me then, Mrs. Prescott. Among those miserable apprentices we hope and expect to find a dear child who belongs to us." "Lack-a-day! What a story-book that would make!" exclaimed Mrs. Prescott. "How long is it since you lost him?" "It is a long time," replied Mary, evading the question, "and it is a long story to tell how it happened. He is my own brother, and this lady who has come with me is our aunt." "And are you quite sure, miss, that you shall find him there?" "How can I say that, Mrs. Prescott, when you tell me that so many of the children are dead?" replied Mary. "But so much do I think I shall, that I will give 5 sovereigns to anyone who will only put me in the way to get admittance to the mill." Mrs. Prescott again shook her head. "There be a many and many a poor souls round about that would do almost anything honest for such a reward. But if anybody told you they could do it as much, they would only deceive you. I don't believe there is anybody in the parish, not even the parson, who could make 'em open their doors to let strangers in." "Do you think that person who has the power to open them would do it for £100?" demanded Miss Brotherton. "I can't take it upon me to say, miss. Sounds like a fortune to me. But they are all rich at Deep Valley, as folks say, managers, overlookers, and all. So mayn't be they mayn't think so much of it." "Mrs. Prescott, I would give £500 rather than not look over the children at Deep Valley Mill." The woman stared at her with a very natural mixture of curiosity and astonishment, but there was a friendly interest in her eye also. "It is late tonight, madam, to do anything. It is," she said, "and if you be pleased to say nothing to nobody till my husband comes home, I don't know but what he may be as likely to think upon what would be the best way to set about it as anybody. No, not that he has ever meddled or makes with the people of the mill in any way, but he's a good scholard, and a quick-witted man, too, as ever I know, though I say it as shouldn't." This proposal was readily agreed to, and the interval till their host's return, employed in a ramble of a mile or two along the road where a recent shower had laid the dust, while every woodbine in the hedges skirted it, sent forth a delicious perfume. The outline of the hills around them, though hardly deserving Mrs. Prescott's epithet, A mountainous was bold and picturesque, and the foreground, with its hanging levels and rich copses, altogether formed a scene of considerable beauty. "All this is very pretty, my good Tremlett," said Mary, offering her arm to her old friend to assist her to her ascent of a steep hill, "and I should enjoy it greatly, did I not fancy that we could look over yonder hilltops. We should see a hateful roof, excluding the sweet breath of evening from those helpless creatures it encloses." "God grant that you may snatch one of them from it, my dear child," replied the old woman. "Let that thought comfort you." "Should I succeed," cried Mary, "should I indeed carry home that little fellow to his poor mother and my pretty Edward, I should certainly feel something approaching to a perfect happiness. But if I fail, how shall I bear to meet them